This week's vocabulary, we've got yom. This is the word that's used for day in Genesis 1. A lot of people are familiar with that, the fact that the dispute over is Genesis 1, 7 24-hour periods, or are they longer periods or whatever. It's a dispute about the meaning of the word yom there. So a lot of people are familiar with yom from that discussion. So I'm just saying this is the word for day in Genesis 1. That's not really a memory aid, but hopefully it will help you remember it. Milchama. I actually didn't have a mnemonic for this, so I tried to come up with one. I've got two here. This is a really dumb one. Don't battle over spilled milk. Chama. That's terrible because it might make you think that milchama means like cry. Don't cry over spilled milk. So that's not a good one. But then I thought of this like a battle is a military campaign. So milchama, milcham, military campaign. That's probably not any better, but it is what it is. Melech. Melech is the word for king. If you're familiar with Melchizedek, his name means king of righteousness. Then we've got Malkut. Malkut comes from Melech. Actually, it comes from Malch, which is the root of Melech. Malkut, you can hear the similarity. You can see the mem, lamed, kaf, and then it's got the ut ending. So I said Malkut sounds like Malkud. Malkud. So it's the king's hood. It's his kingdom is his hood. Sorry. Anyways, you got to do what you can. You got to find some way to remember them. So the dumber they are, the more memorable they are. I have nothing for ear, for city or town. On ale, a lot of people already know that the word for God, we usually say el. The reason why I distinguish here ale is because you got to remember that this is a sere. The word for God, its dictionary form has a sere. And so I say here, note, this is a sere, not a segel. If you see el is a preposition that means in, into, to, or toward. And a lot of people, when they see el, they think it means God. Now here's the tricky thing. There's a particular construction when el joins itself to another word. So if I were to say God of Israel, El Yisrael, when I'm joining el to another word, I would actually switch this sere to a segel. We'll learn about that several weeks down the road. That's called the construct form. Construct, think construction. You're building words on top of each other. Again, we'll get to that later, but that is where it gets confusing because the construct form, the building form of ale, switches to a segel, el, and that's where it looks identical to the preposition. So context has to help you out there. But if it's on a quiz and it's just got el with no word next to it, and it's a segel, that's not going to be the word for God. The word for God is going to have a sere if it's by itself. All right, so Elohim, this is another word for God. El is a singular word. Elohim is a plural form, but the plural form often gets used with singular verbs for the God of Israel. Okay, so that doesn't mean that the God of Israel is multiple gods. It just means that they use this form for the God of Israel. And you can come up with lots of explanations. He's more powerful than all the gods, whatever you want to come up with. But this is not making a comment about the God of Israel as to whether there are more than one. It's simply a convention that Israelites used this form to refer to their God. All right, next we've got Eretz. Now in your book, Futato notes when the accent falls on a syllable other than the final syllable. He notes that by putting it in blue. That's not very handy here. So I note the accent when it's not on the final syllable by using this little arrow over the letter, over the syllable that's accented. This is more conventional. You'll see this in a lot of Hebrew grammars, this little arrow. And so that's why I say this is Melech and not Melech. This is eretz and not eretz. This is marking the syllable that's accented. Eretz, I don't really have a good mnemonic here other than eretz might sound similar to earth. You have that E-R-T sound in both. Eretz, earth. So that may help you. However, if you associate eretz with earth, don't think of a globe. When you see the word eretz, don't picture the earth floating out in space. That's not what the Hebrews, what the Israelites would have envisioned with the word eretz. Eretz pretty much means land as opposed to water, or it refers to a region of land. So in the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so it's primarily, it is geographical, but it's not. The Israelites did not. The reason why we think of the globe floating in space when we see the word Earth is because we've seen pictures from space of the Earth. We know what the Earth looks like when you're not on the Earth. But the Israelites didn't. They would not have seen a globe in space when they used this word. If they were visualizing anything, it would be open land. Maybe as far as the eye could see, but they did not have a global perspective. They did not know the boundaries of the earth. And so that's important to realize, that this word eretz doesn't always refer to the entire planet. Don't think planet when you see eretz. Think the land as opposed to the water. All right. Then we've got davar. Davar, this is another dumb mnemonic that I just came up with. Scripture is davari, words of God. Hopefully it's silly enough to stick. But davar means words. And I said words. I shouldn't say words because davar is singular. So I could either unbold that, but that's still a little confusing. Maybe I'll add that there. All right, the very words of God. I don't have a mnemonic for yod. Maybe you guys will come up with one and you can add that in here. But yod means hand. It literally means hand, but it's used figuratively to refer to someone's power. So the hand of God, or the hand of God. Even in English, we often use to refer to the power of God rather than his physical hand. And so that's what's going on with yod. Lesson 4, we're starting to learn some pronouns. All right, and so we've got several of them here. You'll notice that most of them begin with a hey or an aleph. In fact, they all begin with a hey or an aleph. All right, so the third person pronouns begin with a hey. The second and first person pronouns begin with an aleph. When it comes to third person pronouns, this is masculine plural, they, and it can be pronounced two different ways, or spelled two different ways. One is haim, the other is hema. In both cases, you've got a mem, and that mem can just be a reminder for you that this one is masculine. This is they masculine. Now, obviously, if you're referring to a mixed group, if it's all women, then you might use the feminine plural, hena. But if it's all men, or if it's a mixture, you're going to use the haim or hema. Another way to remember this is if you add a T to haim, haim becomes them. Okay, so them is what I'm getting at here. So it's pretty close. If you were to just spell out what you see here, H-E-M, just add a T to it and it's them. So that's how I get they out of it. Again, the feminine version though, so the M, the mem indicates masculine, and since the mem indicates masculine, the noon is feminine. So you're going to see mem equals masculine and noon equals feminine in a lot of different places in Hebrew. So that's an important distinction to come up with now. Fortunately, the mem equals masculine makes perfect sense for us. Now, we don't use N for feminine in English, but it's just a reminder that M and N are very closely related. The M is masculine, therefore the noon, that's going to be feminine. All right, and then we get to second person, you. So again, here's the plural. This is masculine plural, so it's going, and again, the mem indicates masculine. So it's going to apply to an all-male group, you all, or a mixed group. We would use atem. All right, so atem, I just have up and atom, y'all. That's just a phrase that you can remember that atem means y'all or you all. You plural. Here again, the mem indicates masculine. The feminine plural you, or you all, or y'all, is attain or atena. It has two forms, just like haim has two forms. So attain or atena. Here the noon indicates feminine. So the only difference between atem and attain, I mean, I guess you have a difference between the segel and the sere, but the real difference here is the mem and the noon. And again, that's the difference between masculine and feminine. All right, anachnu. This is first person now, first person plural. This means we. And I don't have a good memory aid for anachnu. I just had to memorize it. But this new ending here, new, you will see that this new ending often indicates we or us. First person plural, basically. That new ending. All right, and that does remind me, if anybody's had Spanish before, that happened to remind me of nosotros in Spanish. So that was helpful to me, but if you've not had Spanish, I'm sure any other Romance language, probably French. I don't know French at all, but maybe the first person plural has an N related to it's we. I don't know, but maybe. So anachnu, we. Then this gets really, really confusing, okay? And there's a couple ways to remember the difference here, but man, is this unfortunate. Because in Hebrew, this word is pronounced he. He. Just like this. It's pronounced the same way, he. Problem is, in Hebrew, he means she. All right, and I know that's going to give you such a headache. I know it. But I recommend just memorize this phrase. This is the phrase that I memorized. Who means he, and he means she. If you can just memorize, who means he and he means she. If you can memorize that, it should help. Another way that you can memorize this is that the word for the masculine, the word who, uses a vav. So its middle letter is bigger than the middle letter for she. So in this case, the masculine version is bigger than the feminine version. Maybe that's helpful, because I do the same thing down here for you, singular. The masculine version has 3 letters, ata. It's longer, it's bulkier. The feminine version is just at or ot. So it's shorter, it's smaller, it's feminine. All right, so with who and he, the longer vav, the bigger letter vav, is masculine. The smaller letter is feminine. All right, hopefully that's helpful. I know it might take a while to get these straight because unfortunately this word is pronounced identical to this and it's the opposite. But who means he and he means she. All right, so looking again. Ata. Ata is the masculine singular form of you. So like you, sir, you. You, man. Ata. Now, it could get a little confusing because we will learn that in Hebrew, frequently the comet's hey ending is a feminine singular ending. So that is going to be a little bit confusing. But in this one case, the comet's hey, being the bulkier form, the bigger form, is for the masculine, And the smaller form, at or ought, is for the feminine. The feminine form is smaller. All right, and then finally we have ani. There are two ways you can say I in Hebrew. There's anochi, and then that sometimes just gets shortened to, instead of anochi, it gets shortened to ani. All right. Now, again, I don't have a memory aid for this, but again, I note this hirik yod ending, just like the nun shurik ending up here, very commonly refers to first person plural. The hirik yod ending very commonly designates first person singular. All right, so again, you can access this spreadsheet through the course. Just go into modules, and then underneath of important course documents, important course information, you'll find memory aids for vocabulary. That'll open up here, and every column except for A, B, C, and D, you can edit. So you can edit column E if there's nothing there. If there's something in column E for your word, go to column F. And then you should be able to stretch these out as well. So I want you guys to feel free to add your own mnemonics because that may help others. But I'm going to add what I can for you, and we'll keep going through this through the semester.